down to New Orleans we go and bring in our new best friend, Mike Haas, who's the radio voice of the New Orleans Saints. First time on the show. Mike, I really appreciate you making time. We both do, for that matter. And we want to know if the Bears hit a home run with Dennis Allen. So why don't we kick it off right there? What do you think about this head coach, defensive coordinator landing in Chicago?
Can we start with the spring forward first? You guys, it's a completely different story here. We hate spring forward, right? Spring forward means spring, summer, hurricanes. We hate spring forward. We love fallback.
See, it's funny that you say that, because last time I was in New Orleans was the NCAA title game with Burrow and Trevor, and I'm in an Uber and she's telling me all the terrible things of the last hurricane flood and how they've got an axe that she used to chop out of her attic to get out there. And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, so what's your plan? She's like, I'm just going to hang out and hope it doesn't happen again. I'm like, that's I don't know, in 2 weeks. But credit to you for living through this, Mike. You're tougher than we are up here. We couldn't do it.
No problem. All good. So yeah, Dennis Allen. So I think this is an excellent hire. We knew he was going to land somewhere. Knew it probably wasn't going to be a head coach. With the situation. And so here's the question. Some guys are coordinators. Not all guys who are great coordinators are head coaches. We're finding that out along the run of every year. There's a new hot coordinator who maybe is not ready to be a head coach. But if you look at his record as a defensive coordinator and how he kind of focuses his defense, now most of his time as a DC was under Sean Payton, which you always had extraordinarily good offenses. But I think this is a really good piece for Chicago. They don't have to do a lot of changes. His defense 4-3, here's the situation for Dennis. He gets to a place where they are $67 million of cap space, and he leaves where they're $67 million over the cap, and where they've been $100 million over the cap during his tenure. So he won't know how to even handle that. But the ability to bring in players that best fit his system, I think is good. And I think, as a lot of coaches, he will benefit from just being the play caller. That's his strength, play calling and running the defense. He's a super guy, right? I mean, I know that doesn't matter, right? But it does to me, because I did Jim Mora, Mike Ditka, Sean Payton. So I'm good with a decent guy, and he's a good person. He's easy to deal with, and nobody cares, of course, if you don't win. But he's a good guy, and you will enjoy covering him and working with him.
So, Mike, when I think about Saints defense and what they've been under Dennis Allen, I think about wide 9 defensive ends. Him not being afraid to move guys around on the front. Flashy players in the secondary. I don't know how much you know about what the Bears have on their depth chart, but I mean, how do you think Montez Sweat is a guy who the Bears traded for a year ago, who did not have a great second season with the Bears, and I'm sure would be at the top priority list with Dennis Allen coming in of, hey, we need to get some pass rush going. How do you think he might mix with the personnel that's already here?
So I'll talk more about his defense, because I don't, right? I mean, I don't know. We didn't play you guys this past year. If we don't play you, I don't know who you are. We do play you coming up, so I will know you. It seems to be always the case. No matter who the Saints trade or get rid of, we play them immediately. They play the Bears next year with Declan Doyle and Dennis Allen. So you're right. So they do a lot of stunning with their DEs and tackles. So Carl Granderson and Brian Brzee and Cam Jordan, back in the day. So he likes the athletic defensive ends. The key for Dennis Allen is going to be finding those tackles who can stop the run. I'm just talking about the defensive front right now, because that is where this team has struggled in most recent years. They have not been able to stop the run. They brought in 2 defensive tackles, Nathan Shepard and Bank, Colin Saunders, and okay, but still a problem area. Their linebackers, they will run, 4-2-5s a lot. They'll have a 2 linebacker, 5 DBs. Linebackers got to be athletic. But the problem this team had is that their linebackers and DBs were leading tacklers, right, every week. I mean, you're used to that with Demario Davis. So it's the key is going to be, can your tackles stop the run? And can you get pressure? And in his defense, the goal is to get pressure with that front four. And when they're good, you're able to do it with a lot of stunts and a lot of athleticism on the outside. But man, like anything else, if you can't stop the run, I don't really care what the second question is. If you don't stop the run, you're in trouble. And that was the problem with this defense.
Well, and hopefully on that front, Andrew Billings comes back healthy next season, which he should, because he was one of the better guys to do it this year for the Bears before he got hurt. Hey, Mike, we have a great producer here named Steven who knows ball really well, and he brought up one of his concerns, and he likes to hire too, but he questioned a little bit about some of the guys that got away from the Saints. You know, the Trey Hendricksons, obviously Zach Bond this year with what he's done with the Eagles. Can you just bring some my initial reaction here when he said was like, well, they're always up against the cap. You mentioned the cap space. Whenever you're in that situation, you're going to lose guys. But can you address, like, is there any concern with Dennis Allen not necessarily identifying talent and then it being too late? Anzalone being another guy that got away. How do you address those situations? Is there any truth to that concern?
No, because I think, in a perfect world, that's not a Dennis decision, right? I mean, Trey Hendrickson had that huge, year 4 and signs the big deal. I mean, you're right. They go into the offseason 70, 80, 90, 100 million over the cap and have to kick the can down the road, which they've been doing since 2020, to try to get under the cap, which leaves them very little ability to keep everybody. You can't keep everybody. Anzalone is one that Mickey will talk about as one that bothers him, that got away. Hendrickson, you roll the dice. You hope that he doesn't continue on with what he did, but of course he has. Zach Bond has been, Vic Fangio, he takes a guy who had been kind of a backup linebacker, special teams guy, 80-some tackles in his career, with New Orleans, and now, just kills it in Philly. So I don't think that's necessarily a knock on Dennis of being able to address talent. The situation that they were in financially just didn't avail them to keep everybody. A lot of money tied up in Derek Carr. They had worked so hard just to get under the cap. And they've been pushing their chips to the middle since 2018. After the 2018 season, 2019 NFC Championship game loss to the Rams, the no-call game, it has been push everything to the middle, Band-Aid approach. We're 1 or 2 players away. The 20 season was the last time the Saints won a playoff game against Chicago, then lost to Tampa in the divisional round, and that's the last playoff win they have had. So this is, I don't think it's a knock on Dennis. This is what happens when you push your chips to the middle for 6, 7 straight years and you don't get any fruition. Tampa Bay pushed their chips to the middle. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl. Nobody cares about dead cap money and all that stuff in the years to come because you pushed your chips to the middle and won. The Saints pushed their chips to the middle and didn't. And so this is the cost of that.
Yeah, and, no offense to the Saints or dire Saints fans like you, Mike, but beating the Bears in the playoffs in 2020, that was not a playoff team. The Bears didn't belong in the playoffs. Like, that doesn't even count. That team.
It does to us. That's the last win.
No, it definitely counts for you guys. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, look, it's interesting to me. Like, Dennis is 52. Our Ben Johnson is 38. And, I'm just curious, like, he's been a head coach. This guy hasn't. How do you think he'll, with the young guru, you said he's a great guy. Like, how do you think he'll support somebody like that? And also, the Bears have called out that they need more accountability in their locker room. Do you think Dennis is comfortable stepping up? Because, the Bears had a cornerback who was talking to the fans in Washington last year when the season ended on a Hail Mary that they never recovered from.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that's, accountability is a big thing with him. Quite frankly, that may have what cost him his job in the long run, just because every week it felt like through that 7-game losing streak, it was kind of the same narrative. We got to stop the run. We got to run better. We got to get accountability on each and every play. And it kind of, the same narrative can get stale, especially when you're losing. But no, I think he can clearly be that guy. He's not the most vocal coach when you get into practice. He's kind of, penciling the visor and maneuvering around. You don't always know where Dennis is because he's not a yeller and he will, but not always. So when he does raise his voice, you perk up a little bit. So, but I think he can be that guy. I think he's going to blend well. Certainly, he has a relationship with Declan Doyle, and I don't 52, 38. I don't know. I don't think. I think the age is. Now Declan's 28. That's young, right? I mean, I think that they can all work with these players and have relationship. But I think accountability will be big for Dennis, and I think he can win that locker room with getting them to be accountable.
And Mike, the $1 million question here for the last 72 hours or something has been, who is Declan Doyle, and how exactly is he the Bears offensive coordinator? What can you tell us about any interactions you had with him or what his role was? Obviously, Sean Payton loves him because he brings him over to Denver too. But what can you tell us, whatever you know about Declan Doyle, who's only 28 years old?
Well, Sean took everybody. Sean didn't. If we put a guy, Tom Smith on waivers, Sean picked him up. He took Jack Streif, offensive lineman. It was a clearinghouse. So, but I think that's kind of. When they signed Declan, I was like, I don't. He was Sean's offensive assistant, for 3 years, and then went to be tight ends coach. I didn't know a ton about him. Because he wasn't a position coach in New Orleans, right? I mean, he's in the media guide. But I don't think that he seemed, I think that's the top of his resume. Sean Payton's speaking for him. And he's been with Sean a long time, just kind of like when Sean got hired here, he was a Parcells guy, and that kind of permeated Sean. So I can't tell you, right? I mean, he was not a position coach here, but he did a lot with Sean and certainly knows his scheme and how he wants to do it. And if he's anything like Sean, there will be one mode, and that will be Declan's mode. I think he can work with other people, and that's the Sean, theory is the Sean Payton mode, and everything else doesn't really matter. So I can't say I'm surprised, but I am a little surprised, to be honest, just because of the youth and just a couple of years as a tight ends coach in Denver under his belt. But, we said the same thing in 2006 when Sean came. Like, what? All right. Then things worked out pretty well. Of course, we had Drew Brees, too.
Yeah, that always helps.
I mean, listen, Declan Doyle was 3 for 4 against Grayson College on February the 20th when he was playing baseball for Iowa Western Community College. I did a deep dive yesterday. The dude was solid at the dish. All right, Mike, I just want to appreciate you giving us the time here. I love your journey, and you can fill in the blanks here that's missing, but it says you've been here. You were in New Orleans since '89 when you started at WWL-TV. 12 years of the sports department. You go to the news side. Then in 2017, you open up your own Haas Communications, doing your own thing. You try to get the Saints play-by-play job. Zach Streif comes in. Sorry, buddy. You actually told the radio station to hire him, so you end up on the sideline. And then he leaves to become, back to the NFL, and here you are, getting to live the dream that Hoag's done play-by-play. I've done play-by-play. I think it's the most fun thing you can do on this side of the mic. So I just think it's a cool journey. So congratulations. And you're like long-time Saints. This long-winded question ends with, please tell me a story about Mike Ditka.
How much time do we have? So first off, you forgot one job. I'm in the Superdome right now. I'm the media relations manager for Caesar Superdome. So trust me, 2 full-time jobs with radio station and the Superdome and my video production company was not the plan. This was not the plan. I fell ass backwards into it. All right. So Ditka gets a job in 97. So Channel 4 is doing the Mike Ditka show, the preseason. We had we did the games, the preseason games, and we did a show with Ditka. So we're in La Crosse, and I say hello to him, and he's, typical Ditka, pretty grumpy. And I say, look, we want to talk to you before your very first preseason game, which was in Memphis. They played in Memphis, in August. And he goes, sure, no problem. So I'm on the field, Memphis, August, 5 o'clock, and it's sweat pouring down. We're doing like a half-hour pregame show. And I see the poor Saints media relations guy go over to Ditka in midfield to tell him, hey, it's time to do Haas. And he starts screaming at this guy. And I'm like, ugh, right? And he starts walking towards me, but he's still yelling at the guy. And in my ear, they're going, all right, minute to Ditka. And he walks over, and I could hear him cussing from like 50 feet away. God bless it. I don't know who said we were doing 30 seconds, stand by. Who said we were doing this bullshit? This is crap. And I'm like, 10 seconds. Here we go, Mike. Stand by. And he is screaming at me. And we go, and they point to me, and he smiles. And for the next 4 minutes, he treated me like I was his firstborn. It was beautiful. We finished. He slammed the mic down, walked away, and never said another word. That was my intro to Mike Ditka. So it was, I look back at those times, and it was, it was a folly. It was folly for a few years. It wasn't bad. It was just folly.
He was very experienced in doing media in Chicago at that point, obviously, with his own radio show and all that. So I can see that playing out exactly how you told that story.
I mean, if you search it right on YouTube, you could find him and Johnny Morris going at each other, and Morris hosted the Ditka show, and he'd be like, "I don't know why we got to talk about this, John." He's like, "Well, Mike, but they had a relationship. You just got there, and he
right, and he was new. I was, I'd been there for a long time, but he didn't. It was just, then he trades the draft away for Ricky Williams, and we had Danny Werfel. It was those. Then we had the Billy Joes, Tolliver. I mean, it was a comedy of, misfortune there for a few years.
Hey, Mike, we're headed to New Orleans next week. We're going to be inside that Superdome that you're in Monday night for opening night. I saw that's where it's being held. Give us one restaurant we got to go to.
Mine is Mr. B's. It's in the French Quarter. It's on Iberville. It's one of the Brennan restaurants. Mr. B's, B''S. I just love it. It's not over the top. It's not, it's just fun. It's a great atmosphere inside. You can't go wrong with any of the Brennans. Dickie Brennan's the steakhouse is across the street. I love that as well. Palace Cafe right there on Canal Street kind of overlooks everything with the glass. So you really can't go wrong, but I'm a Mr. B's, Dickie Brennan's, and any of those places you can't go wrong.
Appreciate it. We're writing all of those down. I think I've been to Mr. B's maybe before, but it's been a while since I've been in New Orleans, so I'm really looking forward to getting back. We're gonna have a great week, and with all your jobs, thank you for joining us today on this show. Really appreciate your time. I spend most of my Sundays when I'm commuting or traveling on NFL Sundays. I got Sirius XM. They're switching from game to game. So you do a great job, and definitely love it when the Saints pop on there when I'm listening on Sundays.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys on Radio Row and opening night. And so, if you need something from the building, talk to the NFL because it's their building now. So they control it. I'll get it back after the game.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the time, man.
We all silly like the mayor.